We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills.
It's been 50 years since we've been to the moon, and we've got a great program called Artemis. We're going back. The Apollo program was a test for the American people that you can do what you set out to do. All it took was turning to it and making it happen.
We are go for a mission to the moon at this time.
Engines on, 5, 4, 3, 2. All engines running. Launch commit, liftoff. We have liftoff, 49 minutes past the hour.
I think the characteristic that I remember most of the Saturn V was the noise. The noise was enormous, and it was almost impossible to communicate.
We're go, train type, we're go. Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
The landing to me was a great celebration. The nation was almost euphoric.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
There are so many things that we could eventually learn about our universe and the spacecraft that we use exploring.
We are a nation of Apollo. We were on national TV literally every day because we were doing something visible that Americans could see and they could feel and say, look what we are doing. And I believe Artemis is going to come up and say, look what we are capable of and what we are doing now.
Artemis will stand on the shoulders of Apollo. They're going to have the eyes of the world on them when they start down this trail.
The science of a space flight is one that will continue to inspire. Going to the moon generates technology, more communications, more computer technology, more sophistication in manufacturing that help us in everyday life.
We have a generation that is ready, a generation with that technology, a generation with the education. Artemis represents the future in space. It is our next big step, and it is time to take it.
When I was a little girl, I wanted to be an astronaut,
a scientist,
a doctor,
a fighter pilot.
When I was a little girl, I wanted to grow up to be strong and independent.
When we were asked to draw a picture of what we wanted to be when we grew up, I drew an astronaut standing on the surface of the moon.
All I thought about was when I was going to get to NASA.
It's a huge honor to be NASA's first female launch director, to be the launch director for Artemis. NASA has so many wonderful women pioneers, so many heroes to me.
Some of the most amazing women in my eyes are people like Katherine Johnson and the other women that you've seen in Hidden Figures.
Sometimes it's difficult to believe that I'm on this side now wearing this blue flight suit with all of the other astronauts, representing this iconic image that had so inspired and excited me my entire life.
Being of South Asian heritage, Kalpana Chawla was just such a big thing for me growing up.
I've always looked up to Sally Ride and Mae Jemison, who really laid the foundation to allow people like me to be in the position that I am now.
All of these women were pushing those boundaries and breaking those glass ceilings.
Now, of course, there are some fantastic women in leadership positions that inspire me every day.
So much has changed since the Apollo program. During the Apollo 11 launch, we had one woman, one out of 400 engineers in the room. And I look at our team today, it's much more a reflection of the world that we live in.
A big piece of why it's so important to have women and diverse backgrounds, because it allows us to bring everybody along with us on this journey.
It doesn't really matter what you look like. If you've got the brains and you have the knowledge, we need you at the table.
We are at such an exciting time in human spaceflight right now, and Artemis is such a huge part of that.
We haven't been to the moon in many, many years. We have a lot of younger generation folks that have never seen that happen.
We will understand so much more about the moon, about the Earth, about our solar system.
We're going to stay. And to me, that's an amazing idea. The moon is going to be the blueprint for how we go to Mars and out into the solar system and maybe beyond.
It is incredibly exciting to be part of this Artemis team. It still feels pretty surreal to think that I might one day walk on the moon.
To see a woman and a person of color on the surface of the moon, to be able to say that space is for everyone and that we go to space to make life better here on Earth for everyone. I know that tears will be in my eyes.
My message to women and girls out there is to find your passion, whatever that is.
Don't let anyone tell you what you can do or can't do. Only you can realize your dreams.
Space is for everyone. And if me being in this role helps to send that message, I think that's a great thing.
And I just actually love that I don't feel like a woman at NASA. I just feel like a person at NASA.
The women of NASA are Artemis, and we make a difference every day.
I am NASA's Spacewalk Office Hardware Manager.
I'm the Program Scientist for Space Biology.
I'm the Director of NASA's Johnson Space Center.
I am Artemis.
I am Artemis.
私は Artemis です。Yo soy Artemis.
Us some Artemis.
Anna. Je suis.
Ich bin Artemis.
I am Artemis.
I am Artemis.
What President Kennedy said was, we choose to go to the moon and do other things, not because it's easy, but because it's hard.
The cost of failure is much higher than the cost of scrubbing. We have an obligation to get this right.
This is a whole new vehicle, a whole new technology, a whole new purpose of going back to the moon in preparation to go to Mars. And yes, it's hard.
The countdown to T-0 starts approximately 2 days before launch. Teams inside the Launch Control Center have been working around the clock, powering up each section of the rocket and configuring the launch pad to support the 8.8 million pounds of thrust our moon rocket will generate at liftoff.
It is a new creation. It is a new rocket and a new spacecraft to send humans to the moon on the very next flight.
Today, we make history. With the launch of the most powerful rocket the world has ever seen, we are taking the first step in humanity's return to the moon.
I can tell you there's an energy and there's an excitement around the Kennedy Space Center, I would say, across the agency and all around the Space Coast as we get closer and closer to this launch.
This mission will validate that the rocket and capsule do perform as expected before future Artemis missions send astronauts to the lunar surface.
We have worked really hard to get here. The team has done an absolutely outstanding job, and we're up to the challenge, and I'm really looking forward to a successful test flight.
You are looking at the world's most powerful rocket and Orion spacecraft live on Launch Pad 39B. Artemis 1 embodies the hard work of thousands across the world, determined to explore for the benefit of all. I'm Megan Cruz, and this is NASA astronaut Kayla Barron.
When I first walked up and saw the view from the desk here, I was just blown away.
This is the moment when it comes to the countdown, and then tension starts, and well, let's cross fingers, everything works well. Tension is rising, and we are fully excited here.
Over the past few years, teams have put in thousands of hours, performing simulations and rehearsals to ensure that they are ready for this moment.
As our 0 hour approaches for the Artemis generation, we do have a heightened sense of anticipation, and there's definitely excitement amongst the team members. We've noticed just the overall mood and focus within the team is definitely a positive one.
Now, with all systems configured correctly, the launch director gives the final go for liftoff.
On behalf of all the men and women across our great nation who have worked to bring this hardware together,
to make this day possible. And for the Artemis generation, this is for you.
At this time, I give you a go to resume count and launch Artemis 1.
This mission goes with a lot of hopes and dreams of a lot of people. It's no longer the Apollo generation. It's the Artemis generation. And that brings a whole new world of discoveries.
T-minus 50 seconds and counting. The Space Launch System is now counting down to liftoff of Orion on its maiden voyage to the moon. And here we go.
10.
Hydrogen burn-off igniters initiated. 7, 6, 5. 4-stage engine start. 3, 2, 1. And liftoff of Artemis 1. We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
Well, if you're just joining us, welcome to NASA's Kennedy Space Center, where we just watched Artemis 1 launch, our first step towards our next adventure into deep space.
With Orion off the ground, Mission Control in Houston takes the reins. Our nation is returning to the moon.
And we have worked hard as a team. You guys have worked hard as a team for this moment. This is your moment. It is not by chance that you are here today. So I want you to look around at this team and know that you have earned it. You have earned your place in the room. You have earned this moment. You have earned your place in history.
The successful launch of SLS is just the beginning. Orion will spend the next several weeks journeying around the moon, sending flight data back to teams here on Earth for real-time analysis. During its mission, Orion reached speeds traveling about 30 times as fast as the speed of sound.
This dramatic video of the Earth-Moon transit that took place showed and punctuated the fact that we were pressing away from our home planet to a distance of some 268,000 miles away from Earth, further than any human-rated spacecraft had ever traveled. For a spacecraft designed to return humans to Earth, eclipsing the mark set by the Apollo 13 vehicle back in 1970.
After several weeks of flight, it was time for Orion to return home.
A half-century later, NASA's newest moon explorer, the Orion spacecraft, is barreling its way back home after circumnavigating the moon and beyond in an elliptical distant retrograde orbit. Now less than 2 hours away from splashing down in the Pacific Ocean west of Baja, California, to complete its shakedown mission.
Like the Apollo missions of the past, Orion will have to endure incredibly high temperatures during re-entry of Earth's atmosphere.
A journey that began with the power of the launch of the Space Launch System 25.5 days ago, about to reach its final minutes in the searing heat of re-entry, where temperatures around Orion will build up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
While re-entering Earth's atmosphere, the spacecraft slowed to about 300 miles per hour. As it continued its descent, Orion's parachute system, containing 11 total parachutes, deployed once it reached approximately 9,000 feet and a speed of about 130 miles per hour.
And there it is, high over the Pacific, America's new ticket to ride to the moon and beyond now in view. Orion under its chutes descending toward splashdown.
These parachutes help slow the crew module to a much more manageable speed, roughly 20 miles per hour, for a water landing off the coast of California.
Splashdown. From Tranquility Base to Taurus Littrow to the tranquil waters of the Pacific, the latest chapter of NASA's journey to the moon comes to a close. Orion, back on Earth.
We've got a perfect view, a front row seat to the Orion splashdown. It's simply beautiful out here. That is a human-rated capsule that went around the moon and returned and is now in the Pacific Ocean.
I think I can speak for the whole dive team that we're honored to be part of history and to be part of something so monumentous, and just ready and excited to go out and do this.
When Orion was deemed safe to approach, team members jumped into the water and attached hardware that steadied the capsule.
What we do at NASA really is all about collaborations, and the collaborations that we've had with the Department of Defense in particular over the past many years, their hard work and their dedication as they went through a great deal of planning, hardware development and processes, and a lot of practicing to get to this point and make it look easy.
And that team, made of a combination of NASA and Department of Defense personnel, has put in years of work to make sure that they were ready.
Melissa Jones, the recovery director, just came from outside the ship's control center, where she was monitoring and, of course, managing her team in the midst of this recovery. So, Melissa, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a long time coming. We've been working this mission for a while, and we've done a ton of training. And every time you do training with a mock-up capsule, you don't have any of that. You don't have parachutes. You don't hear it coming back to the atmosphere, the sonic booms and all of that kind of stuff. And today that actually happened. It's just amazing.
This mission, this spacecraft and this team exceeded all expectations. For the last 25.5 days, we've been every day looking ahead to the next flight to see how we can improve on where we are today so that we can fly a safe and successful mission with our astronauts next time around.
Once stabilized, the team secured the spacecraft with hardware and rope assemblies and towed it to the Navy ship. The dive team then connected Orion to a series of ropes from inside the back of the ship, known as the well deck, to safely and securely pull the capsule inside. With Orion safely secured inside the ship, teams made their way to Naval Base San Diego, where the capsule was offloaded and prepped for its cross-country trip back to its home base, Kennedy Space Center.
This is really the start of a campaign of several missions to get humans back to the moon and beyond to Mars. So there's still a lot to be done, and this is just the beginning.
Kennedy just stunned everybody with the Apollo generation.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out.
And said that we were going to achieve what we thought was impossible.
Of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the Earth.
Many things have happened since, but we knew we were going back. This is the program of going back to the moon to learn, to live, to invent, to create in order to explore beyond. Oh, it's a new day. A new day has dawned, and Artemis generation is taking us there.